And with that, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Neil Smith. Neil, the floor is yours.
This is the best screen I've ever seen. I think my son, Charles, he's 13, his view of utopia would be that in his bedroom running an Xbox on it, without a doubt. Okay, hands up if you've heard of this brand called Marmite. Is anyone familiar with that? Okay, if you're not familiar with it, it's a very thick, vegetable-based, strong, super strong product that you spread on toast. And it's a brand that's over 100 years old, and it's been synonymous with dividing the nation in the UK, associated with you otherwise completely love this thing or you really hate it. But they've been quite smart in the fact of using this lover and hater philosophy as a way of engaging with audiences. So 100 years old, you know, and the challenge is with an established brand like that is that it's terribly hard to continue to attract new audiences, whether they're lovers or haters of it. In around 2005, they actually launched for the romantics in the room, they actually launched a champagne version of Marmite. And as much as I personally love it, serving that in a romantic Valentine's morning, I don't think would particularly go down well. Okay, but in an age of digital, where we have now the opportunity to reach out much broader to audiences, we need much more creative ways of engaging with the new digital consumers. And how do you actually get them to try a gloopy black product that's sitting in a jar? Okay, so what we're going to do is take a little look at something super creative, that what we define as an intelligent solution, and how Marmite have kind of reinvigorated their brand and reaching out to a brand new audience.
Since its creation, Marmite has divided the nation between love and hate. And now we know why. A scientific study has revealed that the secret is in our DNA, specifically the Marmite gene. That's right, our genetics decide whether we're born lovers or haters of the sticky stuff. So science got everyone talking about Marmite. But how do you get people trying it again? Introducing TasteVase, an innovative web app that invites people to taste Marmite, then uses science to analyse their reaction to it. We used Microsoft's Emotion API facial recognition technology and built an algorithm that officially separated the delighted from the disgusted. The TasteVase experience was crafted to be accessible for everyone, especially little lovers. Our bespoke technology decodes every reaction and gives each taster a lover or hater score of 0 to 100%. At the end of the experience, everyone gets a customizable and super shareable reaction GIF, so they can announce their lover-hater status to the world and deal with the consequences. In its first week, TasteVase was visited 65,000 times and beat X Factor to the top trending spot on Twitter. It quickly spread through industry press, and with the data collected, Marmite are finally learning who their biggest advocates are. So that's a fun family experience combined with some super smart tech to put Marmite firmly back on the breakfast tables of Britain.
So it's a really nice story of the way that Unilever and also Marmite have kind of tried to reinvigorate that brand with some very cool but simple technology that just penetrates a brand new audience. And if you actually look at any sort of consumer goods business like Unilever, they have phenomenal portfolio of products. So the deep level of digital engagement that they want, that is experienced through TasteVase, they're actually now driving that through in a lot of the other brands in Unilever. So that early innovative push is staggering the impact that it can actually make to an organization. Okay, any dog lovers in the room? There's a few of you. I personally am a cruel father. This is my eldest daughter, Daisy, who is cuddling our next door neighbour's pug, not ours, because I don't let her have one because I travel far too much. Now, when we build these types of presentations, I want to make sure that I'm testing out against a 19-year-old, and if she can understand it, then hopefully you elders in the room can do that as well. So she has a young brain and young eyes, and I wanted to make sure that she could actually identify the number of dogs that's now going to appear in the next image, right in the center. So 19-year-old brain, 19-year-old eyes. So let's see if you can beat Daisy at this. Now, watch very carefully. You only have 4 seconds, but you've got to identify the number of dogs in this image. Okay, right. Hands up if you had more than 5. Quite a few of you. Hands up. Keep your hands up if you had more than 10. Not so many. Did anyone have 12? Okay, hands up. Pierre, you must have seen this before, right? Okay, so there are 12, but it's super hard when you're asked to do something quickly of how you can compare a dog that's the same color of a number of cooked marshmallows. And why are we looking at that? Well, the reality is that machines found this type of challenge quite hard to do many years ago, associated with merely looking at a binary yes and no. Is it a dog? Does it have ears? Does it have fur? Does it have eyes? But in the new age of intelligence and data, we have a ton of information to gather to really be more accurate around this image recognition. The compute power is simply phenomenal, what we have in our pockets. And over time, these machines are able to learn and adapt and get better and better at how it recognizes this. But if you actually scale this to this much, it really becomes a hard thing to do. So even now, when we look at the AI computers of today, the speed of which, if you actually printed out every page of Wikipedia, converted it from one language to another, it would take normally less than 1/10 of a second. So the ability to drag information back is phenomenal. The quantum computing, 100-qubit computer, is estimated to be more powerful than every machine on Earth today. So this is the amount of technology and compute power that we're able to tap into in the future. Okay, everyone has their smartphone. We talked about this addictive nature, but I'll just leave you with this imagery here. Anyone who does not have their phone that starts slapping their pockets gets deeply anxious that, you know, the world is over. If I take my middle daughter, Nancy, if you unplug the phone from her, it's like cutting her oxygen line off completely. She simply cannot exist without this. And this is not just from a social perspective, it's from a business perspective as well. The context, what makes these applications sticky is the way that data is actually used to make these experiences super contextual. So the data is incredibly important on there. And if we actually think about the stickiness of a mobile or application, if we actually look at the comparison where mobile apps are concerned, a mobile web app, it's much easier to gather an initial audience of users. But the level of usage that they will have, how sticky it becomes, is way bigger when you have a dedicated mobile experience that knows your geolocation, knows your buying habits, knows the behaviors and what you're doing at that particular time. So the real challenge for people that are creating these experiences, just like Tasteface, is how do you move from the capture to the actual using this to drive some real value there. And mobile experiences are actually super stressful. The cognitive load, if your phone is not working, if you can't get connection, is comparable to watching an incredibly stressful horror movie. So this is the cognitive load that people are now experiencing around these mobile applications. Okay, but the concept of an intelligent machine is actually quite old. In 1955, the Dartmouth project was actually created, led by Marv Minsky at MIT, and it really set out to prove this hypothesis here. Can learning be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate that? And they really looked at reasoning, logic, navigation, all of these different behaviors, and really concluded that if that was possible, then we're in this position of creating generalized intelligence for these machines. The sad part is that even though we aspire to have machines ourselves behave as we're doing, then individuals like this, and sadly this is not running, but this individual is actually surfing down a building, holding a can of beer, with it completely destroying his back when he lands. So the point I'm trying to make here is that we're actually not so intelligent ourselves, even though we aspire at the machines to be like that. So what do we generally do? Well, we see, we hear, we interpret, and we communicate things. And we saw earlier on, taste face, the way that we can actually recognize imagery much, much better. But if we think about hearing things, and we take the McDonald's example, is that Forbes produced a very interesting paper a few years ago. It was around how you should be preparing for voice search. Microsoft reached human parity just in 2017 through tons of testing around that, and you're thinking, well, hang on, these machines are still getting it wrong 5.1% of the time. Well, actually, we get it wrong a lot of the time as well, hence the reason why there's that parity. And there's a prediction that voice search will be a prominent thing that people expect to have as a capability of engaging with a digital product, that it will be 50% of the time in the next couple of years on that. Okay, so what we're now going to do is that we're going to identify the things that this gentleman is ordering in a very busy and noisy drive-through.
Good afternoon, welcome to McDonald's. May I take your order? Yes, I would like 2 Happy Meals, 1 cheeseburger and 1 chicken McNugget, both with fries and apple, 1 with chocolate milk and 1 with a small orange juice. Also give me 2 cheeseburgers, both of those no onion and 1 of those some ketchup as well, 1 fry and a large coffee, 2 cream, 3 sugars. Would you like that fry to be large? Yes, thank you. Would you like barbecue sauce with those nuggets? No, sweet and sour. Is the order on your screen correct? Yes.
So that wasn't so easy for the person that was actually taking that order, but what he did actually order were 2 Happy Meals, and actually got a little bit greedy because he thought, well, if my children are eating at McDonald's, then I might as well order 2 cheeseburgers for myself as well. Okay, so the challenge is that you could hear that this woman that is trying to take that order, that is super hard to do, like really hard to do, with all the ambient noise, the crashing and banging of the kitchens, in addition to the engine noise that's actually running there. But what we're able to do is to then, if we're able to then start to take in through speech APIs and do 2 things. Firstly, train them in terms of the language that is typically ordered through a drive-through, but also feed into it the common ambient noise that is actually always present in these drive-throughs that enables us to do this.
Good afternoon, welcome to McDonald's. May I take your order? Yes, I would like 2 Happy Meals, 1 cheeseburger and 1 chicken McNugget, both with fries and apple, 1 with chocolate milk and 1 with a small orange juice. Also give me 2 cheeseburgers, both of those no onion and 1 of those some ketchup as well, 1 fry and a large coffee, 2 cream, 3 sugars. Would you like that fry to be large? Yes, thank you. Would you like barbecue sauce with those nuggets? No, sweet and sour. Is the order on your screen correct? Yes.
So you can see how ambient noise, training these APIs to actually be much more intelligent, enables this type of order taking of the future to occur. So you're thinking, well, if I'm a petrochemical company, own a number of oil rigs, or whatever it may be around field service agents, the reality is that you as an employer have an obligation to keep this individual safe and keep them well connected back to base. So anyone that is in a hostile environment using ruggedized devices now has the ability to make it much more productive, connecting back to base, but in addition to that, make it much, much safer as well. Okay, so we've talked about seeing things, hearing things, but what about the interpreting things as well? Well, actually, the ability for these machines now to, on the fly, understand what it's seeing is simply staggering, whether it's object recognition or the ability to actually slice videos and understand the speaker, the sentiment they have, the demographic that they're within, and also the keywords that are actually being spoken there. So we're going to see a short video clip, which was the announcement of Satya becoming our brand new CEO a couple of years ago. And let's take a look at that, and I'll move over here, because it's going to be here.
Well, Sunday was a really, really big day in Seattle. And it didn't have anything to do with the Seahawks. Because on Sunday morning, our board met and unanimously appointed Sasha our next CEO. We said that we would do an extensive search externally and internally to make sure that we had a good sense of what the talent landscape looked like. And guess what? The best talent we could find for this job was right here inside Microsoft.
So what you're seeing here is the ability to mine information around these video feeds that are actually occurring, whether it's the actual speaker, the demographic that's occurring, and as those individuals are being identified, are they experiencing anger, contempt, disgust, fear, happiness, neutrality, sadness? The reality is that we're finding within Microsoft that there is such a wealth of information, like dark data, that resides within lots of organizations, whether it's training information, marketing information, anything around training that enables that information to now be surfaced and then put to good use. So these types of APIs are phenomenally powerful when you can put them in the context of an intelligent experience where someone needs to gather that information and do something meaningful with it as well. Okay, so we've looked at seeing and hearing and interpreting things, but what about communication? Some sad statistics for you here. If you're in love, the likelihood is in the next couple of years you will have more conversations with a virtual thing, a bot, rather than your spouse. In addition to that, the 85% of customer interactions will actually now be non-human, a staggering statistics there. And the reality is that the amount of social channels that we have access to now, where you're able to communicate with each other, is simply staggering. The thing that you don't want to do is that when you want to get something done, you don't want to have to switch out of the social channel that you have and flip into an app, do something there that's sticky, and then switch back in, which is where the world of bots and bot services actually come into play. 2 years ago, Satya announced the bot service that we actually have. 300,000 developers are actually in place. UPS is a wonderful example. Sadly, due to time, we can't show you this case study, but it's the way that they regard now conversation as a platform and as an intelligent experience that can really get closer to their employees on the move and make sure that they're actually delivering their products on time. And it's not just around business. In a recent hackathon, we actually delivered a set of chatbots out for displaced teenagers that were trying to just pick their lives back up. And it was simple, very simple, intelligent solution, a conversational bot that would help you find the right people, find the information to just get yourself back on your feet and moving and finding that first job. Okay, so we can't underplay this democratized AI and the need for us to actually provide these intelligent APIs, not just for an elitist organization, excuse me, but for the creators, the developers. And why are we doing that? It's very, very simple from our perspective. If you take the data scientist population and you look at the developer, the creators, the people that from the previous session come up with the ideas, it's 40 times larger, the developer audience. So therefore, if we're able to handpick these intelligent APIs around machine learning, whatever that may be, and then expose that to those individuals, you're then accelerating the value that we're actually giving to everyone. And this is a great quote from Aaron Edel from Grey Matter, because cognitive services harness the power of machine learning. We're able to bring advanced intelligence into our products without the need for a team of data scientists. Now, if there are any data scientists in the room, it doesn't mean your job goes away, but what we're trying to do is expose a number of these capabilities that can be precisely described and handed to these creators of a much, much bigger audience. And we've worked really hard around the ethics and the principles around AI as well, whether it's around fairness, ensuring that there's no bias around the way that these intelligent machines actually interpret things. From an ethical perspective, ensure that things are super private for you. The transparency, and also around control. The data's yours, it's not Microsoft's. And that's the critical thing, is making sure that these creators are empowered with this data as well. And one example is around the Partnership on AI, which is a community that anyone can join that really looks at the fairness and transparency and accountability of AI. I'd certainly recommend that you take a look at that. And if we actually look at Satya's vision and Microsoft's vision around AI, it's design AI to amplify human ingenuity, augmented intelligence rather than just move human beings for the side, but also make AI available to everyone. So if you haven't had access to this in the past, we've made sure that every single developer, student, whether it's a top professor, whoever it may be, has access to education like this. AI School, type it in, and you'll find AI School is accessible information for every one of your organization, free of charge, because we believe that everyone should have access to this technology. Very important to take a look at that. And in terms of accessibility, you know, we want to make sure that when we are bringing this to everyone, we truly mean everyone. And this is a wonderful story that I'm just going to conclude the session with, which is around Saqib Sheikh and how he's created this intelligent experience to make him as a Microsoft engineer much more productive. So let's take a look at that.
I'm Saqib Sheikh. I lost my sight when I was 7, and shortly after that I went to a school for the blind, and that's where I was introduced to talking computers, and that really opened up a whole new world of opportunities. I joined Microsoft 10 years ago as a software engineer. I love making things which improve people's lives. And one of the things I've always dreamt of since I was at university was this idea of something that could tell you at any moment what's going on around you.
I think it's a man jumping in the air doing a trick on a skateboard.
I teamed up with like-minded engineers to make an app which lets you know who and what is around you. It's based on top of the Microsoft Intelligence APIs, which makes it so much easier to make this kind of thing. The app runs on smartphones, but also on the Pivot Head smart glasses. When you're talking to a bigger group, sometimes you can talk and there's no response, and you think, is everyone listening really well, or are they half asleep? And you never know.
I see two faces, 40-year-old man with a beard looking surprised, 20-year-old woman looking happy.
The app can describe the general age and gender of the people around me and what their emotions are, which is incredible. One of the things that's most useful about the app is the ability to read out text.
Hello, good afternoon. Here's your menu.
Great, thank you. I can use the app on my phone to take a picture of the menu, and it's going to guide me on how to take that correct photo.
Move camera to the bottom right and away from the document.
And then it'll recognize the text. Read me the headings.
I see appetizers, salads, paninis, pizzas, pastas.
Years ago, this was science fiction. I never thought it would be something that you could actually do, but artificial intelligence is improving at an ever faster rate, and I'm really excited to see where we can take this. As engineers, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants, building on top of what went before. And in this case, we've taken years of research from Microsoft Research to pull this off.
I think it's a young girl throwing an orange frisbee in the park.
For me, it's about taking that far-off dream and building it one step at a time. I think this is just the beginning.
That epitomizes what we define as intelligent experiences. And what we also find is that, you know, an organization can get completely confused and bamboozled about the deep data science that's available, where a lot of companies want to start their AI journey. But when you can make deep impact like this, it's incredibly powerful and much faster to actually implement, something that actually is very visible to people. So I hope that was useful. And Mikhail, I think we're going to have a quick chat.
Yes,
Thank you.
Very good. So I love this idea where you say that this new age, it's not a technology-centric age, but it's a human-centric age, right? And we have these technologies that create, like the video showed, these wonderful opportunities. But then on the other hand, we have many people that are kind of new age Luddites. They're afraid of this technology. What is Microsoft doing to convince them it's okay to use this technology?
Well, as I mentioned in the sort of principles that we actually had there, where every single API that's being built is off of the backbone of those trust, transparency, privacy, and you're owning the data. So we're
those values.
Those values, we're always leading with that, for sure. And it's then making sure that they are super aware of what that technology is actually doing, rather than it being a complete black box. So we want to bring some intelligence to those, so they could plug their intelligence solution into that. But we want to be super open about what is under the covers.
So that transparency builds trust. That's what we already heard about the good behaviors.
Yes.
So come and stand over here. I want to show you something. I will only show it, come here. Neil.
Only in Europe.
Neil, come here. I will only show it for 4 seconds. And then I will ask you a question about how many presidents you see.
Okay.
So show it. Okay. So how many did you see?
I didn't see any.
Okay, Neil, thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks.